In 2022, a pair of former ball players and a talented young broadcaster were tasked with creating a college football podcast. These men promptly escaped into the mountains of West Virginia and got to work. If you want top-level football analysis, off-topic stories, and locker room humor, you're in the right place. You are In the Gun.
In the Gun, Episode 3, what's on tap for this episode? We're going to preview the rest of the Big 12, pick up where we left off in Episode 2, finally rounding out the conference here with a little preseason previews. We're going to talk some interesting NIL updates. We've got a special guest from Wvu Athletics for you later on in the program. And, of course, on Episode 2, we did a deep dive into the Wvu offense. We'll do the same on the defensive side of the football. This episode brought to you in part by GoMart. I'm Wes Uhler, Jed Drenning, the signal caller, and, of course, Owen Schmitt, the runaway beer truck. Gentlemen, just about a week away or so here from the Backyard Brawl. How we doing?
Oh, we've been ambushed by a viral sensation here. Wes's story about the WVU hat and Pat Narduzzi and almost the kerfluffle that he almost caused. I mean, it's gone viral now, and he's wearing Exhibit A as we come to understand.
This is the evidence that is on my noggin. Yes, this is the hat that triggered Pat Narduzzi.
It's a great look on you, Wes.
Well, thank you. You know? Oh, you were talking about the hat. I thought you meant my pretty mug. Oh, sorry. Yeah, but plenty to get to in this edition, gentlemen. Like I said, deep dive into the defense, talking about the rest of the Big 12. We've got a friend of all of ours from Wvu Athletics who's going to join us to tell some stories as well, too. So we'll get started on the other side with some camp notes, with some headlines from around college football, and we'll do that right after these words from GoMart.
Game day got you on the go? We get it. GoMart is here to keep you going all season long with stores throughout our home state. We're a proud West Virginia-owned company, and our friendly staff is committed to serving our communities. From fuel to freshly brewed coffee and snacks, a stop at GoMart to cover your game day needs is always a touchdown. Plus, GoMart Rewards members earn points with each purchase to redeem for discounts on gas and free items. So stop by, start saving, and stay on the go with GoMart.
Back in the Gun, Episode 3 here of your new favorite WVU football podcast. And don't forget to be an ear and tell an ear as we continue to spread the word of this new venture we've got going here. We're going to get to some college football headlines in just a minute. Talk a little NIL developments and Week 0 action here. But first, Jed, as we always like to do here before we get to the regular season, some Wvu Camp Notes. What do you got for us from this previous week of camp? I know there was a scrimmage last week. We're getting closer and closer, we think, to potentially a starting quarterback announcement. What's standing out to you this past week at camp?
Well, that's been the big news is no news. And that's a combination of what's played out of camp. We now broke camp, and we're heading into mock week. But in addition to that, Neil met with the media, and the big story is no story, right? We haven't declared a starter, but, for that matter, stay tuned to Pitt, for potential news there. But we haven't named a starter, at least externally. You got a pretty good sense of what's playing out there, but there have been a lot of positive things to see to close camp, really asserting ourselves with the right foot forward. On the perimeter, we've seen the big wideouts making some plays, KP, BFW. They did some good things down the stretch. Reese Smith had a great camp. He's playing his best football. Tony Mathis looked strong. For that matter, Justin Johnson looked strong and really finished camp on a high note. The team got together and got to visit the mines in Grafton. I always think that's a really cool thing that
was
Neil
cool as
brought. Isn't that
hell.
cool? I mean, that's great. That's for those miners to, not just for the miners to get to meet the team, but for the kids to get to see what it is that makes these guys tick and what they're playing for. But yeah, big Mike O'Laughlin. That's another thing that came out of Neil's meeting with the media. He's come out and said it looks like we're counting on him to be ready for Pitt. And again, that situation at right tackle, we figure on playing a couple guys. So being as fortified at tight end, full health at tight end, and full strength at tight end is going to help there as well. So, some good stuff coming out of camp.
No doubt about it. Of course, yeah. As you mentioned, camp now over into getting ready here. When this podcast drops, 8 days till the backyard brawl. We're getting closer and closer.
I have a question for Jed real quick. Jed.
Go for it.
Yes, sir.
I mean, you gave us a very politician-like answer about the quarterback situation.
Yes.
Is there any goodies, buddy? What's the goods, man?
Are there any good?
Here.
Hold on. I'll cut this part out of the episode, and we'll just the three of us, just real quick. Give us this is secret. Trust. Circle of trust right here.
Trust the process.
Right? No circle of trust here. No one else is going to hear this.
Okay. JT Daniels is a 5-star for a reason. JT Daniels was unbeaten at Georgia, not just because of supporting cast, playing the best football at the position at the end of 2 years ago. He's in large measure as advertised. He hasn't started since early last year. He hasn't played in this system for 3 years. So you have to rep this thing out. And that being said, when you look at the 3 guys in that room with him, I could make a selling point and a pitch about each of the 3 of those guys, whether it's the speed and dynamic nature of Garrett. He brings a completely different thing to the table. Yeah. Goose is incredibly consistent, especially for a guy his age. And Nico is a guy that has taken huge strides since the spring, as you would expect for a guy who in the spring should have been getting ready for his high school prom, right? The game has started to slow down a bit for him. He's still not there, but you see absolute flashes. There's times he'll jump in with the ones and take them the distance, so they're not making it easy either. So it's a combination of all those things together. And at the end of the day, why make an announcement? I mean, what do you really stand to gain externally from that type of thing coming out, right? So it's a nice situation to be in insofar as you have 3 quality young guys in the room, and you have a battle-tested veteran that, boy, he can sling it. Again, as advertised, when things are clicking, he's a fun guy to watch.
Yeah, Nico's a competitor, man. He wanted that job. He wants the job. That's why he came to the school. I mean, straight up, he's a competitor. I just wonder, with this being JT's last year, did he come in
maybe
ready to go? You know what I'm saying?
Maybe it's last year. Again, theoretically, COVID knocked everything off.
Right?
He's got another year.
Well, COVID knocked everything.
So it's crazy. It's
crazy. COVID is nuts, man. It's still Is it real? Is it not? Who knows? But he gets an extra year.
Yeah. Right, and it's one of those things that out of the gates, look, you don't have a chance to kick the tires and feel things out. I mean, you're going against a defending conference Power 5 champion. You're going against a legitimately nasty front 7. And there's going to be major tests against a guy, and we'll talk about this much more thoroughly in next week's preview of Pitt, but against a guy in Pat Narduzzi that does not want to let you run the football. So there's going to be a lot of pressure on that position to produce early in combination with whatever the wideouts can do for them.
Yeah, let's hope the old blowhard can do something.
Huh? Or not do something.
The hat Nazi.
The old hat Nazi.
Yeah, let's be careful what you're wearing into Acrisure Stadium on September 1st, Mountaineer Nation. There might be a dress code posted at the gates whenever you go to walk in.
We're going to add an ampersand after Pat Narduzzi's name, head coach / hat Nazi. There you
I
go.
can't wait to get more into that next week.
Oh yeah.
I've got some zingers, all right, for you guys. But we'll save that for next week
Yep.
because we now have, upcoming week 0 in college football, right? Which is the new starting point for the season. It can't be week 1 anymore. We've got these fancy week 0s now since not everyone will be in action this weekend. But actual football kicking off this Saturday, gentlemen. I know that excites all of us. Certainly it feels like the end of summer and the start of fall every time college football gets going. Some notable games, and Owen, the biggest one to me is Saturday afternoon, Nebraska Northwestern in Dublin, Ireland. And I tell you what, that's got to be like a top. If you're picking from outside of the United States where you would want to go and see a college football game, I got a feeling those two fan bases are going to have some fun in Dublin.
Oh man, car bombs all the way around. There's going to
Just
be
don't call them car bombs in Ireland, though, right?
There's going to be plenty of beer drinkers and Guinness drank, I'm sure, for sure.
Couple
Lots of
pubs in
Guinness.
there.
Lots of Guinness. I mean, what cool, honestly, what a great opportunity for the kids to get to travel overseas.
Yeah.
Now, it's a business trip. We understand that, but still a very cool thing. They'll probably get a little bit of time out. I'm sure the coaches squeezed in a little bit for maybe a couple of things. Because I'm sure they're going over there, what, a week early? Are they doing a week early? They're not just doing
I think like 5 days. Are like they should, by the time this episode drops on Wednesday, they should be there.
Yeah. So they're probably getting a cool little, I'm sure they have some cool events scheduled. But like I said, it's still a business trip, right? So this isn't the Mountaineers when I played. Okay, we went down to Georgia for the Sugar Bowl and partied, okay, and had a great time and whipped some tail. Okay, but that was the old generation, right? The new generation, they got to wear the heart monitors and all that good stuff when they come in, so the coaches know they weren't out partying the night before. But still, great opportunity, very cool. I never got to go overseas playing. I wish I would have been able to do one of those London games that they do every year, well, periodically, but cool event and excited just for the kickoff of football. I get to start on Friday night against Buffalo in the Greenbrier Valley.
Let's go.
There you go.
Let's go, West.
Let's
go, West.
There you go. West it is.
West it is.
West is best.
West is best. West side.
Yeah.
Hey, Wes, the only thing I'll say about Ireland, the interesting dynamic of that game, two teams that a year ago were both 3-9, but boy, their head coaches could not be in more diametrically opposed situations. One is on the hottest of seats in Scott Frost, and the other one, Pat Fitzgerald, just keeps chugging along at Northwestern.
Yeah, no, that'll be a fun one. That's conference game to open the season overseas on a day where, there's college football, but it's not the normal full palette. It's just a few select games that won't have a ton of eyeballs on it, and whichever fan base wins, it'll be, we got this thing turned around, double-digit wins, 10 wins, here we come. Whichever fan base loses, it'll be fire the head coach before we land back in the United States. You gotta love those week one reactions. Home. Yeah, no doubt.
Long flight home.
Couple interesting games other than that. I mean, you got Wyoming, Illinois. You've got Duquesne, Florida State. Vanderbilt at Hawaii, which should be a fun one. High school football back on Friday. College football back on Saturday. God bless everybody. We finally made it. I'm going to step out on my patio Saturday morning and tell baseball to piss off. That's going to be how I'm going to celebrate. Another big story of note, Jed, and I'd like to get your opinion on this one. Come to you first on this one. Nick Saban contract extension through 2030, which means, yes, he will be, barring something unforeseen, he will be on the sideline when WVU and Alabama have that home and home a few years from now. Coming in at just under $12 million a year, 11.7 per for Nick Saban to make him the highest paid coach in college football over his former assistant Kirby Smart. And I tell you what, Jed, that's some, Owen says cha-ching. That's some nice coin for the West Virginia boy, Nick Saban there.
Yeah, old Marion County fella, he's done right. And it's strange to say this for a guy who's about to be making 11.7 mil per year, but I would still consider him perhaps the most underpaid commodity in all of sports when you consider what he's done for that university at large. It's incredible the goodwill and the benefits that he's brought to that school with the success on the gridiron that extends beyond the gridiron. So if anybody's earned it, Nick has. I'm not so sure he'll be around till 2030. I hope not. Coach on the sidelines. I'm hoping he's doing something else by then. I think he'd be perfect for media. I mean, every time he's on the set of game day, he's great at it. Every time he's on the set of one of these draft shows, he's great at it. But I could also see him maybe position himself for one day, if ever there is a position as college football commissioner or college football czar, who better than maybe a Nick Saban? But that's a challenge down the road. I'm just hoping that he's not knocking everybody silly for the next 8 years plus. I'm hoping he's gone before West Virginia faces him here in a short few years. But yeah, if anybody's earned it, Nick has, right?
Absolutely. Show me the money.
Show me the money. Hey,
it's funny to think when I think about Nick Saban and how he's absolutely just demolished at Alabama. I think to that junior year when Rod was offered that job.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
And I'm just thinking to myself, like, these guys literally lived in the same county.
Yep.
Basic, you know what I'm saying?
Yep.
And just it's crazy to think Alabama
met with Mount Moore.
I
still have the website, Owen.
They got the Mount Rushmore guy.
And speaking of mountains, what they always say,
they got him.
When you're hired in the SEC, they say you're given a parka and a pickaxe. I've heard Rick Neuheisel say this, and you're told to climb Mount Saban because very few do it.
No doubt about that. He is
much due respect.
Yeah.
Much.
Yeah, I mean what he's done is incredible, and that is a funny kind of butterfly effect there. What happens if Rich Rod takes that Alabama job? What's that mean for Michigan? What's that mean for Alabama? What's that mean for Nick Saban?
What's it mean if Nick Saban with Miami signs Drew Brees?
So
instead of Dante Culpepper, this could go on forever, right?
Yeah. No, it's a lot of fun. Certainly, there's some big what ifs there. But yeah, Nick Saban, like I think we all agree, rightfully so. Once again, after Kirby Smart had bragging rights on him for a couple months there, the highest paid college football coach in the country. We talked a little bit about the Big Ten and some TV stuff last week. Well, now the Big Ten gets their TV contract finalized. Sounds like Oregon is in conversation with the Big Ten. I don't think that comes as a shocker to many of us. We all know the Oregon brand, and with Nike and with Phil Knight, I'm sure he's got a big part in all of this. Certainly. That feel inevitable to you, Jed?
I don't know if I'd use the word inevitable, but money does talk. You got to figure, Phil Knight and the powers that be at Oregon, they don't want to be left behind, and they recognize that if there is an adult tables, it's the Big Ten right now with that TV deal. So they're going to push hard for the hoop and do what's in their best interest. But, there's a lot of money flying around there. I don't know if it's just something that, Phil Knight could look at and say, hey, here's what we could do for Oregon, and here's what we could do for the Big Ten in general. If Oregon's a part of it, there's just so much money flying around there with Nike and with Phil Knight. It's difficult to say what's happening behind closed doors, but they'll be difficult to ignore because of the Phil Knight factor. A lot's been said about SC and UCLA potentially wanting some travel partners. Maybe not. I don't know, but that's above my pay grade. But I don't know if it's a foregone conclusion yet, but it's something to definitely stay tuned and pay attention to.
As we'll do with all this conference realignment stuff as we continue here. Before we get to some NIL conversation, and I tell you what, Owen's going to wish he was an offensive lineman still in college football when we bring up some of this. Just real quick, some portal news too. Charlie Brewer from Utah to Liberty, and of course our our former signal caller, I should say, Jared Deggy, from WVU to WKU to Troy now. And I wonder if maybe his old head coach Neil Brown had a little helping hand in navigating him down there to Troy, Jed. But certainly, we wish all the best to Jared Deggy, and hopefully he's able to find a home there.
Wish him absolutely all the best. He reached out to me when he left, when he transferred. He's a first class kid all the way, tough as nails. I wish him all the best.
Yeah, he'll kill it.
I hope he's able to go down there and have some success for sure.
He'll have some fun for sure.
He'll have some fun, no doubt. All right, gentlemen, time for a little NIL discussion here before we get to our special WVU athletics guest around the corner. And I tell you what, Jed, it's been a fun week for NIL, for college football. A lot of stuff has transpired this week that I think you would say was the pure intentions of NIL, right? Not the okay, this guy's gonna get $500,000 in an apartment in a car to come here to this school, but we're talking a guy like Nebraska's Dakotas Crawford, who gets a TV spot with an HVAC business there in Lincoln. That's what this is really all about, isn't it?
It's classic. I mean, if anybody put the N in NIL, I mean, this isn't pay for play. This is name, image, likeness. Dakotas Crawford spawns a spot that is everything that you want to see and more in the NIL world. Let's take a look right now at the Dakotas Crawford air conditioning spot.
I'm so glad we called SOS. Our AC is the coldest.
I'm always the coldest.
SOS to the rescue.
Hey, this is Dakotas Crawford, wide receiver from Louisiana, now playing in Lincoln. When your AC isn't the coldest, you call SOS Heating and Cooling. Their techs don't make commissions, so they give you an honest opinion, fair pricing, and longer warranties than the competition, guaranteed. Take it from Dakotas. We will keep you cool this summer.
Pretty good stuff there. I mean, you can't beat that. Again, I'm not naive. I know that this is the minority of NIL deals. But Owen, we've also got Texas running back Bijan Mustardson right now out there with his own line of Dijon mustard. I know you got to love that, and of course now as I'm thinking about all this, and I've got your two former teammates, if you're watching on YouTube, Pat White and Steve Slayton, hanging over my shoulder. I tell you what, partner, I mean, you guys from about 05 to 08, I mean, you could have owned Morgantown with all the NIL endorsements you guys would have been getting.
Man, it would have been weird. It would have been weird. It would have been – I just don't understand the team dynamic with, guys getting paid an exuberant amount of money, and then some guys not getting paid at all. Like, where's the mesh of the team? You know what I mean? It just kind of forces me to think that it's making us kind of twist into this very much I sport instead of the having talks years ago or whatever, or a couple of years ago when NIL was about to be approved, I thought it would have been better if they would have done somewhat of a 401k deal or a retirement kind of deal. So you would have been able to get an allotment of money, obviously maybe monthly or quarterly. But you would have put these kids through stock market classes or business classes where they would have learned how to grow their wealth,
invest, and all those things.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Something where, after college football, some of these guys might not even have to play NFL just because of the amount of wealth they've generated through the 4 years if they're taught correctly how to,
manage that
build
money.
That trust, you know what I mean? Manage that money, build that trust. I'm just saying, if I was 18 or 19 and I was getting a couple $1 million, I don't know if I would have survived.
How responsible would you be? Yeah.
I'm just being honest, man.
You and me both, brother.
Yeah.
Can you imagine? I can't imagine the type of money these players are getting. It's awesome. It's great for them. I think that guy is so clever with the Dijon mustard. I'll probably buy a bottle.
We'll have to before maybe Texas week. We'll have to see if someone down there can ship us a bottle, and we'll do some taste testing on the show.
Absolutely. I would love to taste a bottle. I mean, it's so cool for the kids to be able to get they understand that they're their business.
Yeah.
Okay. So maybe the image part will help guide them in proper lights, right, to go in the right positive direction, right, the positive way,
right,
to stay out of trouble, to get, instead of going the opposite way. I don't know, you're reckless when you're 18, 19, 20, 21 years old. I mean, let's be honest. I went to Morgantown. It was I took a loan out, okay? So I made sure I had beer money, okay? That's a God's honest truth. I took a loan out, so I made sure I
beer
had
loan.
Yeah, absolutely. You know what I mean? So
well, in the spirit of NIL, this is truly NIL. I mean these
this is
crazy.
This is crazy.
It's name, image, likeness. Their name is making the money. But to Owen's point, coaches like Neil are provident enough to recognize, look, it's probably a bad idea to do this without some sort of counseling available. So these kids are coached up by people who recognize this is a lot for an 18 to 20-year-old kid. And not just the fifth quarter program and things like that Neil does to get the guys ready to move on, but throughout the course of this, there's some counsel available, but it's a lot for a young kid to be thrown that kind of change.
Yeah, and what people don't really understand is, like, when a kid comes from hard times, when he comes from nothing, okay, he's going to want some things. His family's going to want some things.
Sure.
Okay, he's going to get a lot of pressure from family members. Hey, man, I'm really hurting, dude. You think you could send me some money? You know what I mean? Or,
hey, can you get me a car?
You know what I mean? Like, just stupid things like that. And I'm not saying, I'm not trying to judge people on what it is. I'm just saying I understand the situations that arise when people come into money. Money really complicates everything always, unfortunately. But hopefully that these schools are getting them the guidance, right? Correct? And hopefully they're putting them in the right direction. That's all we can hope for right now.
That's well said. And Jed, it's everywhere, right? From larger scale stuff to a general booty line of clothing.
A general booty line of clothing. This was bound to happen, right? News coming out that Oklahoma backup quarterback General Booty coming out with his own line of clothing, and I mean the T-shirts range from General Booty reporting for duty. Okay, on down the line. But what I like about this is a portion of this is going to Oklahoma Children's Hospital. So that's pretty cool.
Great.
You love to see that. But what jumps to mind here, Wes, is and first of all, these are fun names. These are fun deals. But it sparks to me some of the other names in college football and some of the deals throughout the course of time. When you look, I always like it when they come up with the all-name team each year in college football. So what we've done is we've assembled some of the more standout names that might have some NIL potential. We did that for fans to consider. And when you look through some of those names, General Booty, we talked about Dakota's Crawford, Boogie Knight at ULM, a wide receiver.
I like Jaeger Bulls.
See, I thought Owen would jump all over Jaeger Bulls for Wake Forest, the tight end. Chief Borders, Florida linebacker. Kool-Aid McKinstry at Alabama defensive back.
Now, come on, that's just cheating. That's just cheating. Come on, he's got Kool-Aid right in his name.
Right there. Pig Cage at University of Texas, San Antonio. And you look all time. This is a list you could really have some fun with. Wonderful, terrific Mons was a linebacker at Buffalo. But my favorites on this, first of all, Ndamukong Suh has to make an all-name team. You know, his name, as I understand it, translates to Village of Spears, I think is what it is, but always loved his name. But Sonny Six Killer, Washington quarterback, Owen, is my favorite of all time. Sonny Six Killer. You had a comment about Ndamukong Suh?
He's an absolute monster.
And then some, right?
He's dangerous on the field. Like,
Yeah, no
that is
doubt.
how powerful that man is.
No doubt.
I mean, he'd be scary in a corner.
Well, some of these deals are now $9.5 million for the kid, reportedly, for the kid going to Miami, who turned down reportedly $11 million from Florida. You have a Tennessee five-star quarterback commit, $5 million they're talking. So some of this money's getting kind of crazy, but if the market demands it, the market demands it. But I part of me says, show me the receipts. I know a lot of this is going on, a lot of this is playing out, but I also think some of this is the agents trying to spur things up and drive the market up.
Absolutely. They want to get a buck. They got to make a buck. That's
so,
how
I mean, I need to see the receipts on some of these deals to believe that all of them are as high as what they're saying, but who knows? That's beyond me.
Well, I need to become an agent. I mean, screw this
Owen.
podcast. I'm going to become an agent.
hey, Owen, do you still have your COVID year of eligibility?
That's right. That's right.
Dude,
Owen,
I got
here's what
one
we'll do.
more year.
Here's what we'll do. I'll be your agent. You use that year COVID eligibility, but I'm going to need you to play offensive line because Hooters just signed 51 different offensive linemen to NIL deals. Buffalo wings for days, Big O. Sounds good to me.
This is I mean, how much fun is this for kids?
A ton.
It is.
I mean, it's awesome. It's just, my biggest concern is that do you remember when they capped the first round draft pick?
Yes.
Like the rookie salary
caps. It was getting my gosh.
Jamarcus Russell was getting a huge deal. Yeah, Sam Bradford.
I think Cam Newton was the class that they capped it. Yeah.
I feel like it'll get to that point where they're like, look, here's a set of rules. This is all you can. If they want to make it even, if they want to make it fair for every college, right? They'll set a sort of, hey, listen, this is the amount you can give this guy. This is what it is. To try to even the playing field out a little bit. They might do that. Probably not going to, honestly.
That's assuming they want to make it fair.
Like I said, exactly.
Right.
I mean, we get that, right? I mean, that's why we're doing this whole deal. But I don't know. You're gonna start. I mean, you say 11 million. It's going to get stupid here soon. That's why I think some of these kids aren't even going to have to play NFL. Some of this talent is going to get paid, and if they get pushed in the right direction and managed right, they're building wealth. They're not getting rich. They're building wealth.
Well, there's a certain transfer at the University of Kentucky playing basketball that did not enter the NBA draft because he was told the slot that he'd be most likely taken in, he'd make less than he's making at Kentucky. Yeah. So a great point, Owen. I mean, this is gonna very quickly accelerate.
Yeah, so you'll see kids stay in college longer, absolutely. I mean, if a team's gonna cough it up, I mean, that's the biggest thing too. Now, where is all that money gonna come from? Okay, obviously the big money schools, they have loads of alumni, loads of help, loads of resources. The smaller schools are obviously going to suffer. Everybody knows that's already been said 1,000 times. But where's the balance going to come in, right? Is it still going to be like, sometimes I think West Virginia's always been a blue collar school. So we're going to have money. They have the trust. They have that stuff. But are we still going to be those guys who, people know that we were the overlooked team, so they still want to come there because they know they'll get the playing time. They'll still be able to compete in a big league. I don't know.
The last thing I'll say about this is I think I don't want to call it a silver lining, but there may be an opportunity for here will be the place that the West Virginias of the world could maybe flourish in this new reality, if there is a place. Traditionally, we've been a developmental program. We always took a bunch of 2 and 3 stars with a chip on their shoulder that in high school, knocked off the 4 and 5 stars and were ticked off that they didn't get credit for doing so. We developed those kids into just about as many NFL draft picks, proof in the pudding right here on the podcast with Owen, as most other schools, okay, that recruit all the blue bloods. Okay, we've sent a lot of guys to the next level, right? So we've been a developmental program. Now, a dagger right to the heart of developmental programs is the portal, is NIL, okay? Because it's much more difficult to sustain over the course of 3 to 5 years that level of development.
Because Tyke Smith bolts to the SEC.
Here's the opportunity. Somebody is going to figure out a way to master with a core nucleus of players who maybe aren't as attractive to the blue bloods that are trying to be poaching, okay? But it's a nice group of core players that you can keep together as a nucleus for 3 to 5 years.
Moneyball.
And the next thing you know, there's a reason that some of these Ivy League schools pull upsets in the NCAA tournament. It's because they played together as a team for 4 years, and there is chemistry, there is continuity, and they're knocking off all these hired guns that are one and dones. I think there's going to be an opportunity for some program, whoever figures out that formula, to settle into that, as you have a core group of guys who aren't necessarily attractive enough to be plucked by all the powers that be, all the other blue blood programs, that stick together, stick it out, and you can develop them, and they can be the glue that holds your program together. Why not West Virginia, if in fact there turn out to be those types of program and whatever this new reality or landscape turns out to look like? That's my thoughts on it.
Yeah, I mean, it just gets so weird. There's so many. I mean, it literally is. It's like 1,000 scenarios can happen with what's going on, and we're only going to see the evolution, just like we're seeing the evolution right now with the NIL, right? Nobody thought it would happen. It's happening.
It's going to evolve.
Now it's who can play the best game. All right. This is chess, not checkers.
Just like conference realignment, just like from the BCS to the playoff expansion. I mean, we're going to look back in 5 years, or 5 years from now, we'll look back and it'll be completely different now than it will be 5 years from now. And that's exciting, and it certainly leaves a lot for speculation as well,
too. Nice segue for the international chess champion that we have coming up as a guest, right?
We do, yes. Before we get to our buddy Sean Merinar of WVU Athletics, real quick, an update on this week's Twitter poll, brought to you, of course, by Toothman Ford. WVU career sack leaders. All right, right now Dante Stills is tied at number 7 on that list with a guy you might have heard of, Darryl Talley, with 19 sacks in his Mountaineer career. On the poll, we asked you, where will Dante rank at the end of this season? And the winning answer by a comfortable margin is 3rd all-time, which would be ahead of his dad, Gary, who has 26. 42% of you voting number 3 all-time. 29% saying number 2, that he'll finish 28 to 34 sacks. 24% saying outside of the top 3, and then a little less than 6% of you thinking that he will break the record. 34.5 the record there, Jed.
Well, let's face it. To break that record, he would have to have the year of years. To become the career record holder, he would almost have to become the single season record holder and eclipse Canute Curtis's single season mark set by that great 96 defense that did so many tremendous things. So that he would have to have the year of years. But Steve Dunlap put together a nasty unit in 96, spearheaded by Canute. So Dante would have to eclipse that mark pretty much to eclipse the career mark. So I expect big things out of him. We'll see what type of numbers that translates to.
I think he needs what, 10 sack? Well, he's at 19. He needs what, to get to 26? Okay, so I don't think that's that big of a number. I think his dad should probably talking a little smack right now. You know what I mean? I mean, truly, as a father, I would want my son to break my record. I would never tell him that. I would never tell him that. Right? I would never tell him that. I would talk smack to him the whole time.
Like, you're not going to do it.
Yeah.
You're not going to do
I
it.
would never tell him that. Right? And I would still be like, still got it, son. You know what I mean? I would never tell him that. But I would love to see him do that. I think that's a great goal for him to push for. But we'll see. I voted that he was going to beat his dad.
Little transparency there from the Big O. Yeah, make sure you're keeping an eye on our Twitter page at In the Gun Podcast. Of course, follow us on all your different social media channels: Facebook, Instagram, YouTube as well. Subscribe there. But on Twitter at In the Gun Podcast is where we will have your weekly polls. We're overdue for a break here. When we come back on the other side, he's a friend of all of ours, and I think by the time we finish this interview, he'll be a friend of all of yours as well, too. Sean Merinar from Wvu Athletics. He's a video producer. He's going to join us. He's got some good stories, and will tell us how the entire surprise shoot of the Country Roads uniforms and the unveiling and all of that went down a couple months ago as well, too. We'll talk to Sean on the other side after these messages from Toothman Ford.
I'm talking with J.R. Toothman of Toothman Ford. J.R., everybody knows a lot of pro athletes buy from you. What's the secret?
Just like Will Greer, future Hall of Famer Frank Gore, James Washington, and many more pros, these guys have financial advisors that are always looking out for them to save time and money, and that's why they always shop at Toothman Ford.
And what if you're like us regular folks that don't have people giving us advice?
You don't need a financial advisor. Toothman Ford will save you time and money no matter who you are. Plus, we'll buy your car even if you don't buy from us. Visit toothmanford.com and get a quick, instant cash offer.
That sounds like a score to me.
That's right. And as always, we'll take anything in trade from chicken wings to Super Bowl rings.
Toothman Ford's got a lot of fans. Here's another one, Dallas Cowboys QB Will Greer.
This is Will Greer, former West Virginia and current NFL quarterback. And cars really do cost less in Grafton at Toothman Ford.
That's a fact, Will. Thanks. You can shop online anytime at toothmanford.com.
Back in the Gun, Episode 3, brought to you by GoMart. Wes Uhler, Jed Drenning, Owen Schmitt here, getting you ready for football season, having some fun doing so. And joining us now, he's a friend here of the show. We hope he will be a friend of yours by the time this is all over. His name is Sean Merinar. He works for Wvu Athletics. He's a video producer. He has been with the program forever. He was there when Owen was playing. I'm not sure if he was back in Glenville with Jed, but it wouldn't surprise me.
Hope not.
He was my mentor when I was at WVU and interning and everything.
Not even close.
Ladies and gentlemen, Sean Merinar, handsome, tubby man of gold.
Hello. One of those things is accurate. One
Big
is
Daddy.
How are you guys? Thank you for having me on. I'm very surprised that I was invited.
First guest we've ever had. How about that?
I like it.
First.
Now, Wes and Jed, obviously, you and I are great. Owen and I have a complicated past now, so I'm surprised that I'm being welcomed as openly as I am.
Well, we had a decision to make, Big Daddy, and the decision was, I got a text from Neil today, and he said, "Hey, is there any way? I know you guys are taping tonight. I would like to announce our starting quarterback on your podcast tonight." And I said, "Coach, I'd love to. But Big Daddy's coming on. We only got one slot."
Well, you chose correctly. You think Neil's got lighting like this?
Well, even Neil could appreciate that, right?
Come on. No, so Wes, you're absolutely right. I graduated in 2007, so I was there for the Pat, Steve, and Owen years. Was a U92 reporter, so I got to travel on the road to a bunch of the away games, covered everyone at home. Obviously, huge fanboy. How could I'm in the same class as Owen. I'm watching them play. Fanboy. I'm at the late great R.I.P. Bent Willie's one night. All right, me and the goons. We're walking around. I'm out on the deck. Okay, out on the balcony area, and I hear, "Hey!" Okay, maybe there's a fight going on behind us. That happened before. Hey! Okay, all right. Let's turn around and see. "Hey, fatty, I'm talking to you." And I'm like, oh, here we go. I turn around, and somebody on this podcast is just in a tuxedo vest. The shirt's gone. Don't know where it went. Boots kicked up onto an oak barrel and just has a beer sitting in front of him. and just gives me the nod. And when we turned around, it's me and my college roommate. We're like, oh God, what are we getting into? And it's him just giving us the nod. It was Notrill's wedding, wasn't it, Owen?
It was.
It was Jeff Notrill's wedding. And
I
that
had
was
a couple
okay,
that night.
So he knows who I am, and technically Owen gave me the fatty nickname that we have run with for years. So if you want to talk about like a villain origin story,
my
dude,
there it is.
There is so much more to Big Daddy than a lot of people know. I mean, I often feel conflict. I'm a man of two worlds. I'm a sci-fi pop culture nerd, and I'm an intense football guy, right? And it's not that often that those two worlds cross paths.
Yes.
And I get to have a conversation either with my sci-fi nerd buddies about football or with my football buddies about sci-fi nerd stuff. But my partner, and what I like to refer to as the largest sports bar in the world, and that's the West Virginia Sidelines.
Yes.
My partner in crime is Big Daddy.
Yes.
And we do everything from talking about, hey, did you see that third down play? To, hey, what were they doing on the other sidelines? To, hey, did you see the Mandalorian trailer? I mean,
We've got a lot of Mandalorian talks.
I mean, these are the conversations that we have for the balance of 3 or 4 hours on the Mountaineer sidelines every week.
Happy to announce to you as well that I am the official only man in the box on road games from a video perspective. I got that honor bestowed upon me today. So very happy.
You
very
and I
happy
know
to
what
pass
that means.
along.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. That's
so it's just your fat buddy standing with the offensive lineman to just hide as much as possible.
In the box. See, guys on the
box.
sidelines, there's a box, and it's designated because certain personnel on the sidelines are allowed within the box. Certain personnel are allowed on the sidelines, but they can't encroach on the box. The box is where you see the team. And sometimes that's when the coach runs down outside the box when he gets excited down to the 20 or the 15, and the officials have to pull him back in. Or sometimes you'll see a photographer who doesn't have a pass to be inside the box, and he tries to get inside the box. So what he's saying is a pretty big deal.
I lurk hard.
But there you go.
That's all it means. I'm just a lurker.
He has my special card. So now he won't just be joining me outside the box, but I have company in the box. That's very good to know.
He's been a staple of the program for a very long time.
Unfortunately, yeah. I've been. Go ahead, Wes.
I was just going to say, when I knew Sean. I was a freshman in 2009, and like I said, Sean was a mentor to me, and he's turned from mentor into friend somewhere there along the lines. But when I really knew that Sean was that dude, all right, when I really knew, as the kids might say, that he's got that dog in him. Gentlemen, if you look at my Twitter profile picture, the cover photo, the banner, is my wife and I playing catch at the 50-yard line of Mountaineer Field. Those were our engagement pictures, and the one who greased it up for us, the one who was able for me and my wife to get our engagement pictures taken at Mountaineer Field, was none other than Big Daddy pulling some strings there. So he's affected all of our lives in a different way.
Please. Listen, and I want to say again, another Owen story. He's affected my life greatly. The last Wing Fest that we had here in Morgantown, they ran out of Fireball flavored wings from Schmitt Saloon. He went in the back and had them cook up about 6 more for me and my wife. So listen, great. You're through the ball at the 50-yard line. Owen, I got a special order at Wing Fest. That's far more important than photos at Mountaineer Field.
You take care of the people that take care of you.
That's what it's all about.
That's what it's all about. Family, brother. That's what it's always been about.
Sean, we saw you taking care of some uniform models. Maybe that's the best way to put it. All right, so everyone's seen the Country Roads uniforms at this point. If you haven't and you're a WVU fan, as Owen would say, Schmitt on yourself. I mean, what are you doing?
Been living under a rock.
Yeah. Everyone's seen the Country Roads uniforms. You were there firsthand on the scene with blankets covering up the uniform as people drove by. If people have seen that viral TikTok that came out after the fact of car and then the guy runs off, you're the one who's right behind him with the blanket.
Yeah.
Tell us what that whole thing was like, just in terms of keeping it a secret, and then the actual photo shoot. Like that had to like get your blood pumping. That had to be pretty cool.
So this is how secret that was. Clay Bollinger, who's our digital media head of creative, got a hold of me about a week before, and he was like, "Hey, we're having a shoot out at Cooper's Rocks this time. Can you be there to help?" Like, yeah, absolutely. Michelle was out of town. She had our son. Great, I'm there. I show up like, okay, hey, what are we doing? He goes, "Oh, it's our uniform reveal." It's like, we got new uniforms for the season. He's like, "Yeah, have you not seen them?" And he opens the back of his car, and that is the first time I even knew that we were doing new uniforms. I mean, that Nate and Kristen, Nate Zinn, our marketing director, and Kristen Coldsnow, our head graphic designer, the one that designed all of it, like they kept that so secret, it was crazy. And yes, when he opened that up, it was like, oh my God, they were absolutely incredible. The other thing about that I feel bad about, right? So Andrew Grieve is our main shooter for that. One of our interns, Logan, is there shooting with him. They're in the bed of a pickup truck shooting all this stuff. You know how it zooms in, zooms out. I was at one end of the road, supposed to stop cars so that, we didn't have anybody on the road so that nobody could see. Not one car drove by me the entire time that I was out there. I did absolutely nothing. I didn't hold a camera. I didn't do any of that. The one time that I threw a blanket over our model is just what they happened to capture. I didn't do anything that day other than just be present. And somehow I'm the one that's just bellowing like an idiot and taking up most of the frame, throwing the blanket on. So I can't take credit for any of it. I was just happy to be there, happy to see him in person, and it just blew up.
It's a special film moment.
It really is.
It's a special film moment. And you got to be there for it.
That dude, and I'm telling you, when our model came out, like head to toe, I like those things are unreal. And I know you guys have seen them in video and everything. Jed, just wait till you see them in person. Like when we are on the sidelines for that, they are exquisite.
They remind me of a muscle car, man. The pinstriping, right?
Dude, yeah. Yes.
Like the ghost, they're like the ghost flames on the uniform. They're hot, man. They're hot.
And I'm telling you, the country roads, the maps is just, she literally, like, I'm using the wrong term because I'm not a graphic designer, but she stenciled the entire map of the state of West Virginia from 2021 so that she said she could have the most up-to-date road so that nobody could complain that road don't exist no more, anything like that. Hand colored all of those so that she could put them in different designs for everything.
Yeah, the gazetteer. I didn't know Kristen did it. Kristen was I had Kristen do a lot of graphic artwork for me in the past. She's very talented.
She is unbelievable.
You guys need to have a full appreciation if you're listening or watching to the level of security clearance that our boy here enjoys. I mean, there are so many things behind the scenes just to help the program function and to get the message out there that Big Daddy necessarily has to see either beforehand, or sometimes he'll see things that nobody else sees at all other than maybe the inner circle of the staff. So that's part of his job description, is seeing things like that, but in spades.
I've been unbelievably lucky that I've been here forever, but every staff that has come through has accepted me and allowed me to be there and to cover everything. I mean, when we beat Texas, when Will Greer had the 2-point conversion, we beat Texas. Thank God I put my camera down because I'm sobbing outside of the locker room. Like I'm just losing. We never win games like that, right? That's West Virginia. We never win games like that. I'm just losing my mind. Charlotte, earlier that year, sun setting behind the stadium, country roads blasting. I'm running around following the team getting shots, and I just stopped at midfield and just started like, it's unbelievable. I truly don't know how I'm there doing this stuff because like I don't deserve any of it.
Okay, can I piggyback off of that then?
Jump.
Buddy, next week when we do our pit preview, right?
Yes.
I'm sure I'll get into some deep, here's what this game means to me as the kid with the WVU initials, who's been a WVU fan for as long as he can remember, growing up 15 miles away from the pit campus around all those wine and cheese dorks, right? Mm-hmm. I'll do a little bit of that waxing poetic about what the backyard brawl means to me as Pittsburgh's foremost Mountaineer next week. But for you, you're a West Virginia kid born and raised. You went to the university. You are, much like me, like grew up obsessed with the football program. Football to you was a Saturday thing, not a Sunday thing.
Yep.
And now you've been employed by the university since 2007. I know I'm kind of putting you on the spot here a little bit. We didn't prep you for this one at all, but just tell me, by the time this episode drops tomorrow, 8 days till the Backyard Brawl, what that means to you personally.
It's so crazy. So started in 2010 here, graduated in 07, worked out in Columbus for a couple years, but came back in 2010.
Okay.
Didn't think I was going to travel that much. I ended up going to every road game. LSU was my first season. Marshall was my first season. And then the last game I got to cover on the road that year was the Backyard Brawl. And that was when we had the new coal miner uniforms. And that was absolutely incredible getting to do that my first season back. But even before that, it was 06 when we were up at Pitt. And you remember that one? That was the Pat and Steve 8,000 yards game.
Yep.
It's me and Drew Epperly for
McAfee with the 55-yard field goal or whatever it was in that game.
For the longest time, the longest field goal ever kicked, not just collegiately, pro level too. So U92, we're covering that, and Pitt's media department sees radio, so thinks that we need a booth. U92 was not allowed to cover, that we can't broadcast the games. Drew and I had our own private glassed-in booth at Heinz Field in 2006 to watch that game, and that just set the bar so high for me. And Wes, you're absolutely right. So from little podunk town outside of Wheeling, West Virginia, Sandhill, went to a 3-room elementary school. We are 50 minutes from my front door to downtown Pittsburgh. Everybody around us is Pittsburgh fans. You went to Pittsburgh for big weekends, all that stuff. Whole family went to WVU. When I was 7 years old, my grandfather got me like a drawing book for Christmas. I drew every WVU player from the 1993 season on yellow legal paper and taped them to the wall of my bedroom. And I mean, WVU has meant everything to me. And you get those moments where you think like, oh, if I could just make sure these guys know. The guys know. Let me start by saying that. The guys in that building, we were over there shooting an intro video today, been around them a lot.
They know how anyone who's been around you for 5 minutes knows how much WVU means to you.
Well, they understand what this Pitt rivalry means too. Like the guys get it, even though half of them weren't born the last time we played. You know what I mean? They're so young and crazy.
Well, speaking of putting you on the spot, okay, that's where this is leading. Let's start with this. You talked about the Texas memory. It's funny how this works.
Yeah.
We were all down in that corner. They stuff us in that little locker room. You come out, and the band and Big Bertha's right there, way down to the other side, Bevo to the right. But Big Daddy and I have, it's almost like when you play, when you enjoy tremendous highs and tremendous lows with somebody, you grow close. And Sean and I could tell a bunch of these stories that we've been there in the locker room, on the field. And so, yeah, it draws you together. But here's where I'm going with the on the spot part, Big Daddy. You guys know who Paul Cole is? Probably not. Okay. Paul Cole was the American tourist that was captured in the background of the famous Abbey Road photo of the Beatles. Okay.
The one who's
You've seen the old Van diagram. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what I got to ask you, you've taken a lot of pictures, but you've also been in a lot of pictures.
Yeah.
Does anything jump to mind? What photograph was your biggest Paul Cole moment that you were captured in, or video clip for that matter?
That I'm in or that I have taken?
Well, let's start with in.
Ooh.
You're in a lot.
Okay, so two immediately jump to mind. The Pinstripe Bowl against Syracuse, right? Incredible. He works for WVU now. Matt Sunday, photographer, took a picture of me hugging Jonathan Kimball, the mascot at the time. Snow's falling. It's me hugging Mountaineer. You can't see his face, and that's like, put that on my tombstone. That's just me. The other one that jumps to mind is, I believe it was 05. Yeah, 05. That ice, and it's amazing that we're talking about Pitt. That freezing game.
Coldest I've ever been in my life, I think.
Remember that one?
Brutal. I was 14 years old.
Frozen.
I was freezing.
Field was frozen solid, Owen. Solid. So I'm down there. Back then, I don't know if it's still the case or not, but media could go down to the field with about 10 minutes left in the fourth quarter so that they could be closer to the locker room. So I'm down on the field, fourth quarter. We're smoking them. It was the correct me if I'm wrong, but it was the Jamal Adai.
Adai had a pick six at the end to really put it away. I mean, it was probably a 20-some point game, but that really put it away. Yeah.
So it's me and, a couple guys I'm friends with. We're covering the game and everything. Team wins. We do the whole lap and everything. And before we go in, people are starting to clear the field. It's our last home game of the season. I've got a little disposable camera, and my buddy goes to the sideline, and I lay down on the flying W, and he takes a disposable photo of me. I'm doing, snow angels. If you couldn't tell, I'm a huge human being. I'm even fatter in college.
If you're not watching this on YouTube,
yeah, if you can't see the outline. As I'm doing that, a state trooper with a dog walks by me and looks at me and goes, "You're a moron, you know that?" I'm like, "Yeah, I just wanted a photo." He goes, "I ought to have my dog pee on you," and like fake kicked me laughing. And so the picture is just me starfishing at the 50-yard line before I get chirped at by a state trooper. So that one sticks in a little while.
That's great.
Taken.
I love it.
Give us your biggest one you've taken.
Oh, so some of the
know.
videos that I've taken. Hit me, Wes. What do you got?
Weren't you the one that shot that ISO shot of Will Greer running out of the tunnel in Charlotte before Tennessee?
Yeah,
that's the one.
Yeah.
That video gives me, it's Will in the tunnel, like hopping around, bouncing around in his hometown, right? Yeah. And he runs out onto the field. That shot, Sean. Oh, not to speak over you there, but my God, just thinking about it gives me chills. It was incredible.
Yeah. It was like that whole. So we got like a new Osmo that can hold your camera. It's like a steady cam, right? But you can just hold it in your hand rather than being the full kit. And I thought, like, this, we're in Charlotte. We had gone to do the press conference like 2-3 months before. I drove Will down to, it was a really nice golf course outside of Charlotte to do the press conference and everything. I was lucky enough to be with him for that. He was talking to me the whole time. I got to really, really know him. And so I'm thinking, we're in his hometown. We're at a pro stadium. This guy's going to go pro.
Where his family had season tickets, like for a decade.
He was on like the Panthers mini league team. Like,
yes.
Let's just see if we can do something. And again, I cut the audio because you just hear me breathing so heavy because he's running. He's jogging onto the field, and Tubby Tubkins has got to hold a camera and follow him the whole way. And he went full length. We did from far tunnel to far end zone. Thank God I just got it together. But even after that, Wes, it's stuff that like hasn't even seen the light of day. Right before the whole team came out, there's a shot from that same hallway that's like Gary Jennings, some of our defensive guys, and I'm just putting the camera into their helmet, and they are just going crazy-eyed, and like, because Tennessee's behind me. They can see Tennessee coming behind me, and they're just chirping. And it was just like, I'm like freaking out, like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God.
I remember us being stuck in halftime in the locker room, Sean, for that extended halftime with the Storm in Charlotte's where I remember. Weren't you, when Will scored the 2-point conversion in Austin, weren't you in that corner? Because he ran right toward me.
Yes.
And I thought you were right down there below me.
I was just back. So the ESPN camera that's got the famous shot of him dragging his toes and holding the ball, he was about 5 yards to my left. I was just behind the play a little bit. Yeah. And I followed and chased him. And what I love about that one, too, is when he scores, he throws the football and everybody's like, oh, yeah, he was so excited. Yes. If you watch, he throws the football at the speakers that were there. Do you remember why, Jed?
I don't remember why. I remember he got into it with the fans.
Texas historically has a microphone by their band. So their band's
That's right.
But Texas puts a microphone in their band and pipes it into speakers on the field behind the opposing team bench. So the whole game, it's just blasting behind us. So when he's got that 2-point conversion, he just let it rip on those speakers.
He was yelling at the fan. I got it on speaking of cameras, I've got it on my black camera here on my phone, that I took a video of him after he did it, getting into it with the fans, screaming at him. That was right by Smokey the Cannon, right down in that corner.
Yep.
But I knew you were in that area. That was an intense atmosphere. But that's what I mean. We got so many of these memories together that, and some of them aren't so good, right? Some of them aren't so good. But
I always tell people, like, I was in Kansas when we lost at Kansas, so it's not all sunshine and rainbows. I've been on that trip.
Show that day. I had to do the post game show. Stay behind. Oh boy,
that's family.
Yeah,
that's family. Thick and thin, Owen. Thick and thin.
That's family.
That's no doubt. Couple more minutes here, fellas, as we wrap this up, and thanks to Sean for his time here. And I just want to know, right? I mean, you had your taste of the Big East days, now into the Big 12.
Yeah.
Best road trip. Like if WVU had to play the same place on the road every single week, where are you going?
Okay, give me some parameters here because my mind immediately goes to food. Surprise. I take one that pops up immediately. It's one of the quicker trips in the Big 12. The facilities are absolutely amazing. It's a great field, great locker room, great environment, and some very, very, very good food. Kansas State is up there for me. I really, really enjoy Manhattan, man.
They fluff your pillow with one hand and jab you with a knife with the other one.
100%.
They do. They
some of the most Midwest nice fans you'll ever have. Like the student section is very like, hey, how are you? While also like under the table giving you a little something.
And spacious, right?
Yeah.
Oh, plenty of room to operate. Yeah.
Huge.
Yeah. Plenty of room.
Man, you got to be good at something. If you can't be good at football, you got to be good at food.
No doubt. Worst trip, Sean. The place that you would never want to go back to.
Tell them about. Let me interrupt.
Yes.
Get to what you're going to answer, but I want
FedEx Field is the answer. But other than FedEx Field, where would you rather never go back?
The locker room at FedEx isn't awful, but other than
the 1850s Mexican prison that is the visiting locker room at Texas Tech. Take it from there. Let's describe it for us.
Okay, I'm 6'3". Owen, you're about 6'3", right? Okay, imagine a locker room that's built for 5'4" individuals with nothing but exposed ductwork and also hallways that I can fit one cheek through.
One stall.
One.
With the curtain.
And not even the curtain half the time. Sometimes they take it off before the team gets there, so it's completely exposed. And it's crazy because Texas Tech has a wonderful, their field's incredible. Their press box is one of the nicest in the Big 12. They just, they give it to you with the, it's like, it's almost as bad as, it might be worse than Rutgers locker room, Owen. Rutgers had one that was, that was
you got to make the team uncomfortable. You know what I mean? It's not supposed to be a vacation when they show up, right?
Yeah.
Put them out of the comfort zone.
Oh, and how tired were you after walking from the locker room at Rutgers? That's the longest walk.
Oh, not to mention slipping down the walkway while you're going down there in cleats. I mean, you can't walk down that thing.
We almost watched Jarrett Brown blow out a knee just trying to get to the locker room in pregame because it was icy and it's like, come on, hold his sides, just get him up there, please.
No, it was bad. It was bad. And nobody wants to go to New Jersey anyways. That place sucks.
No. No. Is Morgan around, Wes? Did she hear?
I was going to say, yeah, my wife is from New Jersey, but she would probably agree. To be fair, that's why she moved. That's why she moved out here with me.
She claims Philly more than Jersey half the time.
Exactly.
They all do.
They claim New York City or Philly, and unless they're from Asbury Park, then they claim Bruce Springsteen.
Of course.
Naturally. Okay, listen, I'm not trying to step on anybody's toes or anything. I'm enjoying catching up with Sean here. Last one I got for you, partner. Okay.
Hit me.
Better memory.
Ooh.
When you and I were working the basketball game, when we beat Kansas, when Andrew Wiggins went off for like 46 points and we still won that game, which was my last game as a WVU, as an intern working with Sean, or when you and I went to the Action Bronson concert together.
It basketball game, no question. No question. Now listen, when Bronson finally showed up,
yeah, he was like an hour late to the concert. 2 hours.
It might have been 2 hours. And then just came out baked out of his mind, which, it's Action Bronson. But then like, hey, sorry, we got stuck. And then just went into it. What was it? Was it 43 minutes? Is that what we timed it?
It wasn't very long, yeah.
And then
see ya.
Yeah. So no thank you. Give me beating Kansas.
So beating Andrew Wiggins with 46 points. Yeah, that's a pretty good one. Pretty good.
And I'm telling you, dude, you've been around. We've been around long enough. I've got to see some crazy stuff. I kind of handle a lot of stuff with the server, a lot of archives. Whenever the video guys over at football, when we get new folks in, I try to give them, here are all the highlights that you need. Here's Major's run. Here's Pat's run. Here's Owen Hurlin, the guy at Rutgers. When I go back and I watch that stuff, it still gets to me. I cannot, to this day, watch your speech, Owen, without I'll close my door in my office because I'm going to start getting waterworks. It's absolutely insane.
Mm-hmm.
It tears me up. I mean, it was such an emotional moment. You know what I mean? So many things were coming to my mind at that one time, and trying to keep it collected on national television. You just break down. I mean, there's so many emotions. That team And that's why that's the credit to Coach Rod was, even though he was a son of a bitch, he knew how to build a family amongst all of us. And we all come from different collections of the world, you know what I mean? And I'm not just talking about the team. He had a Facebook, he called Facebook. It was a piece of, it was a collection of papers with everybody's face on it and their names. He wanted everybody to know. And I'm not just talking about players. I'm talking about front office staff. I mean, to the janitors.
Yep.
I mean, it was literally everybody was on there. And you live through that, right? You go through that. WVU, in my opinion, is such a special place just because of what football means, not just football, but what the university means to the state, obviously the sports mean to the state, but what the people mean to the state, what the blue collar people of the state mean. And it all culminates under the Milan Puskar Stadium, you know what I mean? And we all come together and have this holy trinity of faith and family and fun and football. And it's hard not to relive. And this is me personally, and I get to speak daily with people about it. So trust me, I get just as emotional hearing it again, and love sharing it for the first time with people, because then they'll give me their honest opinion. And it was the realest moment I could have ever gave, right? The truest statement I could have ever gave. And everybody, without having to say or call out anybody's names, was all involved with that meeting. And that's why it was such a special moment, in my opinion, because so many people felt the same thing that I did at the same time, because we all did it together.
I mean, Tito crying after his long pass, that was the start. Like, you see that emotion in his face and you're just like, dude, this is it.
Yep.
I cried for 3 straight hours that night.
Oh, yeah.
So Sam Bradford.
I thought I was 16 years old. I was 16 years old. I thought we were finished. Rich Rod left. We blew our shot against Pitt. And then here comes Owen to save the day. God bless America. God bless West Virginia.
And it was a crazy moment, because at the time she was asking me those questions, the band was playing Country Roads.
Went right into Country Roads.
It wasn't even a time.
Couldn't script
timing's everything in life, and it's just crazy how all those moments come together. But it was an incredible moment. I mean, I shared the moment with my family, my friends, my colleagues, my teammates, everybody that was associated with, Mountaineers at that time. And now we're here still reliving it. And that's how we know it's such a real moment, right? It still brings those tears, still brings those feelings back, right? Like the Bruce Springsteen song, it'll always bring you back, right?
So one last thing before I bounce, and I'll get out of here because I don't want to take up too much time. But so we were, like I said, we were shooting the intro video today, did some stuff in the locker room, and they played Stu's speech on the big screen in the locker room so that we could get a shot. You'll see once the season starts and everything. And I looped it, right? So I've got it looped so we can keep shooting and do whatever we need to. It played 30, 40 times today while we were over there.
Oh,
we've got a group of players with us in the locker room who are getting ready to do part of the shoot too. And sophomores, juniors, Florida, California have no correlation to WVU football other than playing for them there now.
And they were probably 7 years old when that happened.
They were, talking along with it, saying it word for word, not even after like 10th time, second time, like knew it, remembered it. Dante Stills and Zach Frazier told me that before every Pee Wee football game in Fairmont that they played, their coach had them watch that and then immediately take the field. 10 years old, every game, watching the Stu speech before you play 10-year-old Pee Wee football. Watch it, take the field, boys.
It's the Al Pacino Any Given Sunday speech, dude.
100%.
I mean, it's literally, it's bigger than that. It's bigger than that.
Yeah.
And I know you guys will be happy to hear. I was speaking with one Blaine Stewart the other day, son of Bill Stewart, who is now wide receiver coach for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Pretty cool full circle moment and story there with Mike Tomlin and Bill Stewart's relationship. Blaine's bringing a rowdy crew to the backyard brawl. So let's channel that. That's all I'm going to say. All right, because I don't know what he wants out there or not, but let's hope we channel that energy on September 1st here in just a few days.
I cannot wait to just be on that sideline for that opening kickoff.
It's going to be a Texas moment, Big Daddy.
It's going to be unreal. And listen, I know I sound like just a weepy little tub of goo, but last year when we took the field against Maryland, right? Road game. First time we played in front of fans in how long?
Yeah.
At Maryland, it's a somewhat rivalry game, not as big as obviously Pitt, Virginia Tech. I started to tear up when they took the field. So I don't know how I'm going to be able to film the team running out of the tunnel and going to the sideline for the first backyard brawl that I've been in Pittsburgh for in 12 years. It's going to be, I cannot wait.
And I'm usually filming you, film them.
Just so you have the blackmail on me forever.
If you need some good fan tailgate footage, Red Lot 6 starting at 2 p.m.
Wait, Wes, it has to be PG tailgating footage.
That's true.
You ready for this? All right, for all the people on YouTube, I
What's
picked
wrong
up my
with beer bongs, Big Daddy?
I picked up my tickets. I picked up my tickets today, Mr. Mariner.
Oh.
19 of them things.
Sweet baby Lord Jesus.
And look, I got them all labeled. That's how excited I am for whose they are, because obviously I'm not taking 19 seats. I'm not taking 19 seats myself.
Telling-ear to telling-ear. Talk about that.
Telling-ear to telling-ear that Wes sold out of 19 tickets. Pitt, West Virginia, right there. There we go. I'm hoping to cry before the game and after the game. Happy
Big
tears.
Daddy,
happy tears.
It's Big Daddy. You're responsible for my first goosebumps of 2022.
I can't wait.
I'm
telling you, I cannot wait.
I have them right now. You got me thinking about it. I got it right now. I got it.
When Jed sent us the outline for today's show and he said 10 minutes guest interview with Big Daddy Sean Mariner, I said, yeah, that's going to be more like half an hour.
I told you I can stay within the guidelines if you need it.
Sean, you've given us about a half an hour, buddy, which is we are eternally grateful for. Ladies and gentlemen, WVU Athletics video producer Sean Mariner. If you want more of the hilarity and the personality, at Big Daddy Mariner on Twitter. Buddy, thank you so much for the time, and hopefully we'll do this again soon.
Not a problem, gents. Thank you very much for having me. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Love you, brother.
Smooches, babe.
Big Daddy.
We're going to get to a break here, and when we come back on the other side, we will continue to preview the Big 12, the rest of the conference that we didn't get to last week. You are in the gun.
Game day got you on the go? We get it. GoMart is here to keep you going all season long with stores throughout our home state. We're a proud West Virginia-owned company, and our friendly staff is committed to serving our communities. From fuel to freshly brewed coffee and snacks, a stop at GoMart to cover your game day needs is always a touchdown. Plus, GoMart Rewards members earn points with each purchase to redeem for discounts on gas and free items. So stop by, start saving, and stay on the go with GoMart.
ITG, your new favorite WVU football podcast. Had a lot of fun with our buddy Sean Mariner there, and he told me, you know, when we stopped recording there before he said goodbye to us, he said, guys, make sure you tell an ear to tell an ear about your new favorite WVU podcast. Seriously, thanks to Sean. We'll be having him throughout the season. He's great. He's a friend of all of ours. He's a friend of the show. And some great stories, some great personality, absolutely. But now it is time to get to the second half of our Big 12 preview, previewing the competition. It's the second installment. Of course, last week we previewed half the league. This week, the other half. Jed, we will start with the reigning Big 12 runner-ups in Oklahoma State. I think a program that kind of defines stability under Mike Gundy, a program that had one of their better seasons in program history last year. Can they continue? Can they keep that train rolling this year?
Yeah, last year that success was led by a generational defense. 3 opponents, they held under 150 yards. That's insane. Led the Big 12 in total defense, third down defense, scoring defense, rush defense, sacks, TFLs. They were as disruptive as you could hope for. Now, Defense coordinator Jim Knowles has moved on. He's at Ohio State now, so you have a new guy calling the shots in Derek Mason. But Gundy has kind of asked Derek Mason to step in. Look, keep the system in place. You learn our language. But in addition to that, they lost 8 starters in that defense. They have the lowest amount of returning defensive production in the country. So this is going to have to be all about Spencer Sanders at quarterback. Now, the problem is there's times in his career he's been turnover prone, 31 picks and fumbles. But if he plays the way he did in that bowl win over Notre Dame, almost 500 yards of total offense, was very efficient with the football, kept it out of harm's way. He's going to have to lead this team, and this team, to be successful, is going to have to look a lot different than last year's team.
It'll be interesting to see what it looks like there in Stillwater. Certainly, I know it's been a long time since we've beat those guys. I would like to get a crack at them this year. Owen, I'll come to you here for TCU. I mean, gone is the legendary coach of that program, Gary Patterson. In now, Sonny Dykes, a guy who certainly knows the Texas market. How you feeling about TCU?
Yeah, Sonny Dykes, air raid guy. Brings all those Dallas connections and goodwill, right? Now he's got all the resources. Obviously, the Big 12. Biggest thing I think for him is bringing in Gillespie, correct? Mm-hmm. And bringing that 3-3-5 stack from that traditional 4-2-5. Obviously, TCU struggled on defense. Giving up, close to almost, 430 yards on average.
It's a big number.
Yeah, 35 points, bad news Bears there. But I'm looking to them to really stack that defense to help compete in the Big 12.
We'll stay in the Lone Star State, Mr. Drenning. We just shared some fond memories in Austin with our buddy Sean Merinar. Texas, we joked last week about how somebody in the coaches poll had them ranked first overall. They're not ranked in the AP poll. That is kind of Texas, right? They're Forrest Gump. You never know what you're gonna get. They got Bijan Mustard, who we talked about earlier, who is one of the better running backs, certainly in the Big 12. I think in the entire country. Maybe we should have mentioned him in our potential dark horse Heisman conversation last week. How you feeling about those Longhorns, Jed?
There seems to be this dark cloud hanging over the 40 acres, and it's continued into camp. I mean, they've had some bad news coming out of camp. They had a big play receiver from Wyoming and Isaiah Nair that they were really high on. He's lost for the year with a knee injury. Junior Angelo, one of their better offensive linemen that they were going to count on, he's lost for the year. Just recently, Quinn Ewers was named the starter over Hudson Card. So they're hoping that he is as advertised and can return to the Lone Star State and do some of the things that he enjoyed in high school. You talked about Bijan. They're really going to have to lean on him. When he is healthy, he's about as dynamic a football player as there is in the country. 100-plus yards, 5 of the first 6 games last year before getting slowed down and then getting knocked around with some injuries. Despite just 244 rushing attempts, he had the 3rd most missed tackles in the run game in all of Power 5. That shows you how elusive, how explosive he is. Now, interesting little factoid about Texas. The last time they had an offensive player drafted in the first round, now this is Texas, all those resources, all those blue bloods, all those blue chippers, all that money, that fertile recruiting ground right there around campus. The last time they had a first rounder on the offensive side of the football, Vince Young in 2005. Okay.
Wow.
Now I think Bijan can change that, but the last time they had an offensive lineman go in the first round was 2002. I'm not so sure that's going to change. The culture needs to shift. Defensively, all the talent in the world, no hard edge. They at times down the stretch played soft last year. That's going to have to be fixed. Again, with that talent, they posted the worst pass rushing grade per Pro Football Focus, had them at 65.3. They had just 20 sacks. With that kind of talent that they have access to, there's no excuse for that. That has to change. They have to play up to their ability, but that's only going to happen if there's a seismic shift in culture. Let's see if that happens.
And finally here, rounding it out for us for our Big 12 preview, the worst locker room in the conference, it's Texas Tech. Owen, a program that I mean, going back to even the early Big 12 days, right? The Cliff Kingsbury days. They're up certain years, they're down certain years. They've always got talent, but never really maybe, been able to put it all together. I mean, heck, they had Patrick Mahomes under center, and I don't think ever won more than 8 games in a year with one of the best quarterbacks we've ever seen. New head coach Joey Mcguire, the Texas high school legend. Just in 2016, he was still coaching high school football. Now he's the head coach at a Power 5 program. What are we thinking for Texas Tech, Big O?
Well, obviously they get rid of Wells after a 13-7 overall record after the 2.5 seasons there. But in my opinion, bringing in their new OC in Kitley, obviously their schemes, potential air raid, offense opportunities there. They're at Western Kentucky University. They had obviously an astounding FBS record of 62 touchdowns, almost 600 or 6,000 plus yards passing. Look to see some excitement there in that offense. Hopefully stretching the field, getting the ball downfield. Great defensive coordinator in Tim there that they got there. He's been on numerous teams, just to rattle a few off: Ohio, Navy, Nevada, Air Force, Texas A&M, California, and Oregon. We'll see what ends up happening there. He's going to be creative and giving them some different looks, 3-4-man looks. And the thing that Jed kind of gave me a little note on is their star position at defense. That guy's going to have to be a stud. He's going to be asked to do a lot of things on the defense and make a lot of plays. So look to see that guy kind of I'm almost thinking a little bit of a, I'm not named Polamalu guy, but he's going to be a guy he's going to be stretched all over the field. He's going to be obviously lining up in a lot of different areas, making a lot of different plays. So we'll see what ends up happening. They have some concerns, obviously, at cornerback and O-line. So it's a rebuild year, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, certainly. And again, they're a program. It feels like you never really know what to expect, except for that they can get you any week. That's kind of always been Texas Tech, and they'll be an interesting one to keep an eye on in Joey Mcguire's first year there running the sideline down in Lubbock. Quickly before we go, gentlemen, as well too, when we saw, I mentioned the AP poll just a few minutes ago. We saw that come out last week. 3 of our future conference brethren on there as well too. BYU, Cincinnati, Houston, all preseason ranked, all coming off double-digit wins, double-digit win totals last season. BYU 10-3, Cincinnati 13-1, of course, in the college football playoff. Houston with Dana 12-2. UCF as well too. Of course, we know have been a very successful program over the last decade or so. 9-4, including a bowl win over Florida last year. So, hey, Jed, you're losing 2 big brands in Oklahoma and Texas, but that schedule ain't getting any easier anytime soon, and we'll certainly be keeping an eye on those teams this year before they become our conference foes, in the next calendar year.
That's for sure. BYU, a heck of a national following, and that program is on very stable footing. I remember when we faced them, Sataki, a handful of years ago in 2016, they were coming off kind of a transition year, but he really has that thing on solid footing. UCF, you know what you got. You know what you have access to there. Gus Malzahn, Herb Hand, that staff, really solid staff. Dana's done a tremendous job at Houston. I can't say enough about what Doug Belk has done as his defensive coordinator. So across the board, obviously Cincinnati with the run that they had last year. Now let's see if they can reload. But all 4 of these programs bring something to the table to really it's going to be a battle-hardened schedule once they get lined up in the Big 12.
So there it is, our Big 12 preview. If you missed the first half of that, you can catch that on last week's episode 2 of your new favorite WVU football podcast. We're going to take our last break here, and when we come back, it's time to preview the Mountaineer defense. We will take a long look at the 2022 WVU defense when we come back to close out this episode of ITG. Wes Uhler, Jed Drenning, Owen Schmitt, you are in the gun.
I'm talking with J.R. Toothman of Toothman Ford. J.R., everybody knows a lot of pro athletes buy from you. What's the secret?
Just like Will Greer, future Hall of Famer Frank Gore, James Washington, and many more pros, these guys have financial advisors that are always looking out for them to save time and money, and that's why they always shop at Toothman Ford.
And what if you're like us regular folks that don't have people giving us advice?
You don't need a financial advisor. Toothman Ford will save you time and money no matter who you are. Plus, we'll buy your car even if you don't buy from us. Visit toothmanford.com and get a quick, instant cash offer.
That sounds like a score to me.
That's right. And as always, we'll take anything in trade from chicken wings to Super Bowl rings.
Toothman Ford's got a lot of fans. Here's another one, Dallas Cowboys QB Will Greer.
This is Will Greer, former West Virginia and current NFL quarterback. And cars really do cost less in Grafton at Toothman Ford.
That's a fact, Will. Thanks. You can shop online anytime at toothmanford.com.
Final segment here of ITG Episode 3. Wesley Uhler, Owen Schmitt, Jed Drenning, having some fun here. Our final week of the off-season before it is Backyard Brawl week next week. And what better way to wrap up this episode than previewing the Mountaineer defense? Of course, last week, Owen gave a award-winning breakdown of the zone run as we talked all things WVU offense. We'll switch to the defensive side of the football here. Jed, a lot to get into here. I know you want to discuss the 3-year sample size that we have, of Neil Brown and certainly Jordan Leslie as well, too. This is a defense, I think, that has a lot to be excited about, while certainly, some things that you can point out as concerns as well, too. Mr. Drenning, I know you've been watching the film, you've been breaking it all down. When I say, previewing the Mountaineer defense, where's the first place you think we should go?
I think that it needs to be said that Neil Brown is a head coach that a defensive coordinator should love to coach for. Now, there's offensive guys with offensive pedigrees that's not true of, okay? But Jordan Leslie's done an exceptional job. But let's start with this. Neil Brown sees the game globally. He understands how the offense impacts the defense, both impact special teams, vice versa. So what that means is sometimes offense isn't about being high-powered and ratcheting up a bunch of points. Sometimes it's about getting a couple first downs and punting. Sometimes it's about putting a fire out, just helping your guys out. Now, I'm not a big time of possession guy. I don't pay as much attention to time of possession per se, but I do pay attention to how it might correlate to the number of snap counts that a defense faces. And when you look at West Virginia over the course of the last 5 years, of course, the last 3 have been the Neil Brown era. I think back, for instance, when we had in 2018, the 31-14 lead at halftime at Stillwater. We all remember what happened in the second half. Well, unfortunately, that defense was on the field for 51 snaps in the second half. That's a tough ask. Again, sometimes you just got to get a couple first downs and punt to buy your defense a break, a blow, get them back to the sidelines, put a fire out. But when you look over the course of the last 3 years, have those snap counts have diminished with the number of snaps the West Virginia defense is facing. The last 2 years, it's down to 63 snaps per game that they have to defend. Those are Big East era defensive snap counts, and that really matters. And I think it's important to kind of set the tone by talking about that first.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And I like how you said that, too, in regards of, there's some offensive-minded head coaches that you like to be on the defensive staff for and some who not. That's, Jed, you hear that. Listen, I'm sure Owen's talked about this with the boys down at West. You know it's at WVU all the way up to the NFL. You've got to play complementary football in that regard. Mm-hmm. And I think, listen, I enjoyed Dana Holgorsen. I could sit here and I could argue for Dana all day.
Oh, yeah.
but I don't know if you could say that about his offense, that it was complementary to what they were trying to do on the defensive side of the football at the same time. I think that's an area to be encouraged by if you're a WVU fan.
Oh, and he's doing it now at Houston. That's why Doug Belk is enjoying coaching for him as a D coordinator at Houston. Owen.
Well, I think the biggest thing too is you might not pay attention to time of possession, but it's about how well conditioned are we to be able to take all these snaps, right? So being able to give your defense time, whether you are a quick scoring offense or not. Obviously, when we were playing West Virginia, or when I was at West Virginia, we were a no huddle team. We'd score quick, right? So we'd put our defense in situations where they had just gotten off the field after a long drive, right? They're tired, right? Them big boys are tired. They need some rest. So being able to give each segment of the game time to recover, and obviously you still want to be that most conditioned team, right? To be able to play those 4 or 5 quarters. Honestly, the 5th quarter being the most important, and that's what you always condition for, right? Always extra to make sure you're prepared for those situations. But I think here going forward, defense wins championships. That's the most cliche thing you could probably ever say in the world, but it is the truth, right? So we got to put some points on the board, and we got to stop some people. Okay, whether or not it's a long drive where the defense has to put through and blow their back up, and we settle, they settle for 3, or we get the 4 and out. Those are things that we need to look for to be able to get us through for those 4 quarters.
And what's critical is you have to be built to play different styles of games. Sometimes offensively you might need to be put somebody on the business end of a shootout and score 40 some odd points to win a 45-38 game. But sometimes you find yourself in a slugfest and you have to be able to pump the brakes. And sometimes it all happens within the balance of one game, to where you're high octane for a quarter and a half, you're scoring quickly, and then you got to kind of tone it down because you read your defense, you see them struggling. But Jordan Leslie has responded to this opportunity very well. There's some things that jump out about what he's done. I mean, I could talk about how I liked the fact that last year they swelled up in the red zone. They only allowed a touchdown on 42% of the opposition's trips into the red zone. That's actually the lowest percentage by a Big 12 defense since all the way back in 2014. But more than that, I like things that happen multiple seasons. That speaks to a culture. That speaks to a standard being established. And there's a couple of those things. For instance, for the second straight year, West Virginia allowed the fewest plays of 10-plus yards in the Big 12. So those are the first kind of automatic first downs that allow the offense to get in a rhythm, okay? 2 years in a row, we've allowed the fewest in the league. Also, for the third straight year, again, let's go back to Pro Football Focus. Pro Football Focus watches tape and grades teams defensively as to how well they tackle. Well, West Virginia has been the highest graded tackling team in the Big 12 by Pro Football Focus 3 straight years. So these are things that represent a recurring theme, and to me represent a standard that Jordan Leslie, Shadon Brown, that defensive staff have established, and it speaks well for West Virginia.
And they got great technique, obviously. He's teaching great techniques. These guys are going through these drills every day, day in and day out. They're teaching the right things to these kids. And these kids are taking that coaching, right, that constructive criticism, and they're taking it to heart. Obviously, to be a strong defense, you got to be able to tackle in space, which at times I think we've done very well. I think I was listening to a media review with Dante Stills talking about all hats to the ball, right? So really getting that coverage on the defense, playing till the whistle blows, right? Another cliche thing. But that's what we need to do this year. If we compile that stuff with what he's coaching on top of it, you'll see a successful defense. On top of that as well, special teams, right? Special teams, in my opinion, obviously is the most underrated positions on the field, the most underrated plays of the game. but they have such a great impact. Field position plays such a crucial role in being able to move the ball, right? Defense can bow their back and they can hang on as long as they want. That's the best part about being a defense, right? It's not so much about the first downs. Let them chip away. Let both teams see where the conditioning lies at the end of the game. But the big plays are what we need to eliminate in order to be successful for this season.
I think that's well said, absolutely. And I love how you referenced there, Jed, how consistent this team has been in terms of tackling grade-wise in the Big 12. Because when you lose your top 5 tacklers from last season, that's a cultural thing that you need to continue. I love that. I did want to make sure to ask you as well, too, Jed. You know, I think with the defensive line, there's a lot of feel good about this team, you know, led by Stills, obviously, and even with the absence of Messidor, still some real depth and talent there. I love what's going on at the linebacker position. I love Lee Koba. I believe that's how he pronounces his last name, right?
Yep.
It's Koba.
Yep.
I think he is a dog. I think he's giving me like JT Thomas type vibes, which I love. You bring in Tariq Austin Cave from Miami. The one area, though, where there's been a lot of turnover on that defense is in the secondary. You know, Charles Woods is back, and I think we're all very high on what he can do. But besides that, you've lost a lot of defensive backs. You've lost both of your starting safeties. Is there enough athleticism and talent in that secondary around Charles Woods that they can kind of match up with what we hope that we have at the same level that we hope that we have on the D line and with the linebackers there?
Yeah, systematically, strong defenses are just like strong offenses are built from the inside out, right? So if you work your way back, just as you hit on right there, from the D line to the second level with the linebackers, back to that third level, let's look at it like this. With the defensive line, one of the things Jordan Leslie likes to do, he gets creative, he chops things up. There's a lot of movement, both pre-snap, post-snap. There's a lot of twisting, a lot of stunts, Owen. And it puts the offense, it really tests their communication. Now, what it also does, in part because of personnel, in part because of scheme, it's difficult to run an even front defense because typically if you're an every down even front defense, you need a couple war daddies, Warren Sapp types to be that 3 technique tackle. Okay. Well, they don't grow on trees. Okay. If you do find a couple, you're not going to find 4 or 5 to have any depth. So traditionally, that's why West Virginia ran the odd stack. You could find those second and third level type body types, those type players, but it's hard to come up with those NFL type D tackles. Well, what we've done with Neal is we found just enough to introduce some true 4-man, but also a lot of 3-man. And with that bandit position, it puts you in position to kind of have the best of both worlds because we've now recruited for 3 years. And when you look at the different body types, okay, Dante's obviously Dante. He's a monster. Okay, he's an animal. He's going to wreak havoc. Jalen Thornton, 6'2", 278. He's a disruptive force in there. He has a little twitch to him for a guy that size. Zyke Lawton, 274. Future potential there as well. When you look at the nose guard position, that's where you're going to find the size. Jordan Jefferson, 3 bills plus at 310. Mike Lockhart, transfer in from Georgia Tech. He's not just a big man at 317. He was a heck of a high school basketball player in Birmingham at Hopton High School. So he's going to have some feet to him. Eddie V, completely different animal. 6'3", 281. Then you go to the defensive end spot. Taj with a different build. He has a pass rusher's build. Sean Martin, 6'5", pushing 290. Taurus Simmons, he's an interesting cat that can play both on the D-line, maybe push out the bandit. And at bandit, Jared Bartlett has come a long ways, at a tremendous offseason. He's very versatile, puts you in position to do a number of things. Linnell Carr, he's a true pass rusher, so can really create problems when you get the offense behind schedule. Now, I don't know if at that bandit position we're quite to where we were years ago. The gold standard of the bandit position is DeMarcus Ware, or even more recently with Hunter Reese, a guy who is a consistent all Sun Belt type player for Neal and his staff. But that's what we're working towards. And, Owen, we're going to get to the secondaries. We work our way through these linebackers. But when you look at will linebacker, Lance Dixon can run like a scalded dog, and he played a lot of box defender when he was at Penn State. Put on a little more weight, he's ready to do some of that again. But he can run just like a true will linebacker can run across the formation and make plays. I think it's big news that X3 Lowe is back, a guy with 130 career tackles, double-digit TFLs. That's big news that he recently has come back. You talked about Lee Koba. Lee Koba is a very electric football player and a creature of the box. Now, can he master the leverage right out of the gate that's going to be necessary against Pitt? We'll find out. And then finally, Owen, at Spear, we have different body types at Spear. First of all, recognize what Spear is. You kind of toss them in that linebacker group, but they're also tossed in with the secondary. They're a hybrid Sam linebacker that's also a heavy nickel. Davis Mallinger, completely different body type at 6'1", 194, a kid who can run all day. In high school, he was a wide receiver. In high school, he ran the 200 meters. Jasir Cox from North Dakota State, another guy who was a box player as a linebacker, but now he's kind of a Swiss Army knife out there playing Spear, out there in space, can set a heavy edge, but also match up in space with you. So, Owen, I want your thoughts. Let's work through the D-line, then into the backers, and then we're going to close out with the secondary.
Well, I think they got a lot of depth, obviously, in the D-line positions, and being able to change up in formations a little bit, shows some 4-front, some 3-front. I think we got guys that we can interchange and get in there when they get tired, right? Get them a couple reps here, get them a couple reps there. That's going to help us out a lot just to keep the wind of the defense, right? Keep some fresh legs in there is what we want to say in football terms, right? Get some fresh legs in there. I think we're going to see, we got guys that aren't just freshmen, right? We got some sophomores, some juniors in there, some seniors sprinkled in. And at some point, right, in any team, right, you're going to ask those guys to do some things that might be outside of their comfort zone, but that's going to play out throughout the season. Once that experience gets exposed, once that experience gets on hand, they're going to be able to see what these guys can do a little bit more. And that's going to start evolving the defensive front, right? And everybody knows games are won up front. So we're going to be looking for some big play up front, obviously. Stills is going to have to lead that charge. He's going to have to be the heartbeat of that defense. He's going to have to take that ownership and wear it on his head every day and bring that energy. And I think if we can do that, get our conditioning up, right, rotate those guys in there. And guess what? Hey, if you want to play, boys, you got to make plays, okay? So the opportunities are there. I always thought that at D-line just because we always did rotate so much. It's a very physical, very aggressive, very passionate position, and we need guys that can come in and step it up and do the job for us.
Wes, what are your thoughts? Let's start with this. I'll play off of what you say about Charles Woods. And the way that, especially the way he played down the stretch for us last year.
Yeah. Sorry, are you talking just in terms of the secondary now?
Well, I want your thoughts on Charles Woods as an anchor to this secondary, and then we're going to segue into the secondary at large.
Sure. Yeah, I think you have to be excited about him coming back for two reasons. One, like you said, down the stretch at the end of last season, it looked like the game really slowed down for him. It looked like it was all coming together. He was picking up what the coaching staff was putting down, and that all played out. I'm excited in that regard. I really am. I'm a little nervous on the back end because we have had a plethora of talent there for a while. You know, I think a little while ago on the podcast, I think maybe back when we were talking to Sean, or maybe even before that, I mentioned Tyke Smith. We all know the experience that Adai brought there last year, Mahone and all I mean, if I'm correct, Jed, didn't he have more starts on defense than anybody in program history?
Yeah, so, he was back there forever and a day. Yeah.
So you lost a lot of experience and a lot of talent on the upper level of that secondary, but bringing a guy like Charles Woods back is huge. I certainly think that there is a lot of talent there. It's unproven, it's inexperienced, but they've recruited well at that position. They've supplemented well on the back end there. But I do think, you know, and we could talk about some concerns to get out of here if you want to as well too.
We'll get to that in a second. Yeah.
I'm not breaking any news here. The Big 12 is a passing league. It is maybe not as much as the stereotypical college football fan thinks. Well, every Big 12 team throws for 500 yards a game and plays no defense. Like it's not to that level, but it is certainly a passing league. That's the one thing that gives me pause. You mentioned there's different types of games that you have to be adaptable to as a defense, right? And I just wonder if we do get into some of those shootout type games, do we have the guys on the back end that can hang in there, that can bend and not break, that have the experience to take a couple on the chin maybe, but to still be able to make the play in the fourth quarter? I think Woods is a great catalyst to have back there. I just hope sooner rather than later some other guys can emerge as well.
He's a tremendous anchor.
Yes.
And we'll start with that. I think there's some good news beyond Tim, in addition to what else we have. We'll get to that in a second. But as an anchor, we talk about Pro Football Focus. You'll hear me reference it quite a bit. It's one of the sources that I kind of lean into during the season. Few players in the college game received more love consistently from PFF last year than Charles Woods.
They love him.
I mean, every time you turn around, there was a tweet from his film grade, whether it was lowest passer rating and coverage among Big 12 cornerbacks last season, only Big 12 cornerback to post a coverage grade higher than 80 last season. CFB's highest graded corners in zone coverage last season. He was number one. Lowest passer rating allowed in coverage in a season by a Big 12 cornerback. Now think about this. He's number one all time with the lowest since they started grading at 22.1. Guess who's number two? Baylor's Xavier Howard, who's making a little bit of money at the next level right now at 32.9. So that's the kind of company Charles Woods is keeping. And I truly feel he can be the anchor. But the narrative seems to be, and you're right, we lost a lot. We talked about the senior safeties. We've talked about the attrition, the impact the portal had on the corner, okay? So let's take a look at this. You want to see the experience we truly do have coming back in the secondary? If you look at four names on that back end, Rashad Ajayi, Jazir Cox, Marcus Floyd, Wesley McCormick, those four guys, now it hasn't been in the old gold and blue, okay, but it has been at the college level. Those four guys have started 103 college football games. Those four guys have collectively played in 167 college football games. Now, you might be thinking, well, sure, Marcus Floyd was doing that at Murray State. Well, Murray State played Cincinnati. Murray State played at Georgia. This is high-level football. This is quality football that these four guys were playing. And now they've been introduced into a secondary to bring that experience, to lean on that experience, again, with different body types. And when you look at those guys, in addition to some of the other names that we have back there, whether it's the Andrew Wilson Lamps, okay, some of these guys, the Hershey McLaurins, Aubrey Burks at free safety, long, athletic guys that have closing speed that can run. What that puts you in position to do. Here's a number that you need to see change. A year ago, the defensive line accounted for almost 70% of West Virginia's sacks, okay? If you can man up in the secondary, last year we were a zone football team. We had to rely on the defensive line to pressure the quarterback. This year, we're built a little differently. This year, we might have opportunities to man up, throw extra resources toward the passer, get a little more exotic with your blitz packages, and actually pressure from the second and third level and help that defensive line out. And maybe see some of those sack totals coming from your linebacker group, coming from your defensive back group. That's what we need to see happen. And I think with the experience that we have coming in with all these transfers and the athleticism, Owen, I do think those are possibilities for us on the back end.
Yeah. And there's no experience like experience. Okay. Gameplay is gameplay. It's one thing getting reps and scout team and, second, third string, but game experience, there's nothing like it. You see real time. Being able to get into man coverage gives us a big advantage at times, right? Like you were saying with
blitz packages. Mm-hmm. The biggest thing that I see with us on the back end there is getting those guys in there, getting them to mesh with the defense, right? Getting that confidence. We need to make some stops. We need to make some big plays. I'll tell you what, from my experience playing with guys, the guys in the back of the defense, okay, they live on confidence.
Yep.
Okay. So we play well back there. D line starts feeling good. We get those good vibes. We start making those big plays. That's where that experience is going to come from. And I have no doubt. I haven't obviously been able to see those guys in practice, participating, what they're like, who they are. But I have no doubt in my mind, a baller is a baller. They came here for a reason, right? And we chose, we accepted them for a reason. So I expect big play out of those guys up front. And I expect them in the back there, and I expect them to make big plays for us this year. And I expect them to work as a unit. I'm excited to see the changes that we can make with going from man to zone, right? That's a big change in your defense, and that's a lot of scheme play that those other offenses have to account for and plan for.
Oh, that's well said. That is. Gentlemen, we're approaching about 2 hours here, so God bless the people who are still with us. We hope we haven't put you to sleep yet. Quickly, before we go, as we wrap this up, you mentioned we said some concerns. Jed, you mentioned how close to 70% of the sacks came from the D-line last year, how they need some help in that regard. I think 2 more just to highlight quickly before we go. And this is something I think we talked about in our first 2 episodes. You got to have that finish, right? Maryland, Oklahoma, Texas Tech, very winnable games down the stretch, not just on the defense, but they're certainly a part of it as well, too. You got to I had a hockey coach that used to make this joke, guys. You'll like this, and Jed, you're welcome to steal this in the future if you want. He used to say, "You guys are all Swedish, no finish." You get it? Sweden and Finland. You guys are all Swedish, no finish. You'd make nice passes and everything. You'd get to the goal and have the open net, and you just wouldn't be able to bury it. I think it was a good defense last year, but at times when it mattered, they were a little too much Swedish and not enough finish. And then you need more turnovers as well, too. 13 turnovers forced last year. That's last in the conference. That has to improve. Those are the big 2 for me. Finish games strong and take the ball away.
Maryland comes to mind. Texas Tech comes to mind. Oklahoma comes to mind. But Owen, you talked earlier, and I'm going to finish with this, about the impact that field position and special teams have on the defense. All right, well, we got this kid in from Florida State from a special team standpoint. One quick point on special teams before we move on. Obviously, I like our athletic body types populating our coverage units. That's an advantage. But Parker Grotehouse from Florida State, if you look at his touchback percentage during his career at FSU, it's 61%. West Virginia's touchback percentage the last 2 years is 16%.
Ooh.
So last year, WVU was 129th out of 130 in what Football Outsiders calls kickoff efficiency. It's a metric they use that measures the scoring value gained or lost per opponent kickoff return. We were 129th out of 130. Now, are you telling me that a guy coming in with a career touchback rate of 61% can have a direct impact on that defensively? I say he can.
Absolutely. And special teams is just so crucial. I think back to the days of Beamer ball and how much that helped that team out. In my long career, not really, but in my short career in the NFL, right? Special teams is how I made that's how I made my quan, right? That's how I made my dollar bills. It is imperative. I think of a guy when I think of just a punter, right? I think of Pat McAfee, but I think of Sean in Oakland, just cheating the numbers, right? Going from a 47 to a 48 to a 49%. All those little variables. And like you just said, 16% we were at in touchbacks?
Last 2 years, yeah.
Completely awful, right? So being able to bring a guy in like that, be able to stretch that field and create those positions that we be able to turn the field over, it's insurmountable what it's going to do for the team. So those types of guys on the team, we need those guys. We need special teams. Like I said, if you want to win a championship, it's all three phases. Okay, it's all three phases. You got to be not great, but you got to be good, right? You got to be good, and you got to be sound. You got to be efficient. You got to be effective. So if we can bring all those three things together, and special teams can be a big part of this team, those finishes that we're talking about, finishing the game, we're not even there anymore, right? We've already won that field position. We've already gained that trust. We've already gained that confidence. We've gained the time that we need. We've gained the yards. We've gained the field position. And that's when the ball games become a lot easier because you put yourself in good situations.
Well said.
Yeah, absolutely. Parker Grotehouse, let's kick him out of the back of the end zone at Acrisure Stadium here in a few days. Gentlemen, a lot of fun today. I hope everybody's enjoyed listening as much as we've enjoyed doing this. Thanks to our buddy Sean Merinar for joining us earlier. A couple reminders here. Be an ear, tell an ear, right? We're spreading the good word about this podcast. I mean, did we have some downloads in Madagascar or something I saw? Jed, what was going on there?
It was Kenya.
Okay.
I was saying tell an ear in Tanzania to tell an ear in Madagascar. So let's spread the word, right? So, yeah.
I love it. Yeah, keep spreading the word. We're going to keep doing this. Once we get into the regular season here, we'll be doing recap and preview episodes, 2 a week for you guys. Make sure you're following along all of our social media channels. In the Gun Podcast, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube as well. Subscribe there if you want to see our beautiful mugs and get the video version of this podcast as well, too. And gentlemen, next time we speak, it'll be Pitt Hate Week, and I can't wait. It's gonna be a lot of fun. Not only next week as my Beat Pitt sign falls down here as I'm pounding on it too much, but the whole season as we roll along here, just getting started. So thanks to Toothman Ford, thanks to GoMart for making this all possible. Any last words, gentlemen, or am I good to sign off here?
Hey, let's go Mountaineers.
Next time we talk, we'll be having game week. Yeah.
Next time we talk, it'll be Pitt Hate Week. I can't wait. Owen says, let's go Mountaineers. I say, let's go drink some beers. I'm Wesley Uhler for Jed Drenning for Owen Schmitt. We will talk to you guys next week when it is game week. All right, get your coonskin cap on, buckle that strap up tight, and plug your nose. Because it's Pitt.
No doubt.
It's Pitt week next time we speak. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. This is ITG.